Imagine dedicating your life to someone, working tirelessly for their future, sacrificing your own dreams, and pouring every ounce of love and energy into seeing them succeed. You do this for years, believing that one day, they'll appreciate everything you've done for them. But what if, instead of gratitude, you're met with betrayal? What if, after all the years of hard work, the person you love the most turns their back on you when you need them the most? This is the shocking reality that Margaret, a mother who had given everything for her son, had to face. For 30 years, she sacrificed everything, her marriage, her career, her personal happiness, just to make sure her son, Ethan, had everything he needed. She raised him, paid for his education, and even bought him a house, thinking it would be a symbol of her love and devotion. She gave him everything she had, and in return, she expected nothing more than respect and gratitude. But one fateful day, when Margaret shared the news that she had lost her job, her son's reaction shattered her heart. Instead of offering a comforting shoulder or words of encouragement, Ethan called her a burden, a useless parasite who had outlived her purpose. In that instant, Margaret realized something that would forever change the course of her life. Ethan didn't see her as a mother, he saw her only as a source of money. The sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the constant struggle to give him the life he never would have had, none of it mattered anymore. What was supposed to be a moment of empathy and care turned into the catalyst for Margaret's personal awakening. She realized that after all the years of giving, her value wasn't being defined by her love, her dedication, or the selfless sacrifices she had made. It was being defined by how much she could give financially. For the first time, Margaret saw her worth through a different lens, not as a mother serving her son's needs, but as a woman who deserved her own life, her own freedom, and her own happiness. And so, in the moment of her greatest rejection, Margaret made a decision that would forever change her life. She refused to be the woman who would continue to give without being appreciated. She stood up for herself and made a choice that many wouldn't understand. She decided to walk away from a toxic relationship that had drained her for far too long. Margaret's story is not just about betrayal, it's about rediscovery. It's about realizing that sometimes, in order to truly live, you must let go of the people who hold you back. But Margaret had a secret, one that would change everything. While Ethan believed she was at her lowest, Margaret was about to reclaim everything that was rightfully hers. This is where her story truly begins. Stay tuned, because you won't believe what happens next. The journey from betrayal to self-discovery, Margaret's new beginning. Margaret never imagined her life would unfold like this. For over 30 years, she had been the cornerstone of her family, sacrificing her own happiness, her dreams, and even her personal time to ensure that Ethan, her son, had everything he needed. She had raised him as a single mother, given him everything she could, and even went so far as to buy him a house, thinking that one day he would understand just how much she loved him. Yet, when she lost her job, Margaret faced a shocking and heartbreaking reality. Ethan, the same son she had sacrificed everything for, called her a burden. His response to her loss of employment was far from understanding. It was filled with anger, disrespect, and cruelty. He saw her as nothing more than a financial resource, someone who existed only to meet his needs. "You're a useless parasite," he had said, throwing her out of the house with little more than a cold, dismissive glance. The pain was overwhelming, but it was also a wake-up call. It was the moment Margaret realized something crucial. Her worth had never been defined by her love or sacrifices, it was only valued by how much she could give him. The harshness of Ethan's rejection struck Margaret deep, but it also sparked something inside her, a fire that had long been dormant. She wasn't going to be the victim anymore, not after everything she had done for him. It was clear that her sacrifices had meant nothing to him, and that was the moment she decided to stop giving. She was done being the mother who always gave, always provided, and always forgave, only to be walked on and disrespected. She wasn't going to let her son's greed dictate the course of her life any longer. What Margaret didn't reveal to Ethan was that she had a secret, a financial lifeline she had never shared with him. She had inherited a fortune from her late employer, a woman who had treated Margaret like family, a woman who saw her for who she truly was and respected her for the years of service and loyalty Margaret had shown. This inheritance was her ticket to freedom. It was her chance to start over and live a life that wasn't defined by the needs and expectations of others. The revelation of this inheritance didn't come quickly. But when it did, it was nothing short of transformative. Margaret realized that she didn't need to be tethered to a toxic environment anymore. She no longer had to be the source of Ethan's financial security. She had worked hard for years and had earned every penny of the inheritance. Now, it was her time to enjoy the fruits of her labor. In the weeks that followed, Margaret began to make the changes she had longed for. She moved out of the house that had once felt like home, packed her bags, and left behind the life that had defined her for decades. Her son's accusations, his venomous words, and the betrayal from the people she had loved most no longer mattered. She was free. It wasn't easy to walk away. There were moments when Margaret doubted herself, when the guilt crept in, especially when she remembered the years she spent raising Ethan. The bond between mother and child is a powerful thing. But Margaret knew that her own well-being had to come first. She had given enough of herself, and it was time for her to reclaim her life. But as Margaret sought her independence, she found herself facing a new kind of battle. Ethan and his wife, Nicole, didn't want to let her go. They didn't want to lose their financial support. They pushed her to return to work, even suggested she go back to her old job, even though it was clear that the only reason they wanted her to keep working was to pay for their own expenses. They didn't care about her health, her happiness, or her peace of mind. They only cared about the money she brought in. The turning point came when Margaret made the decision to finally retire. She told Ethan and Nicole that she was done. "I'm retiring," she said, her voice firm and unwavering. No longer would she be their cash machine. No longer would she be the person they could call upon whenever they needed money. She was taking control of her future, and nothing was going to stop her. Of course, this decision didn't go over well with Ethan and Nicole. They were furious. They couldn't understand why Margaret would choose to stop working when she still had so much to give. "You're just going to sit around?" Nicole asked with a sneer. "You can't just stop working. We have expenses. You should be helping us." Their words were sharp, filled with entitlement and a complete lack of gratitude. But Margaret stood her ground. She wasn't going to be a slave to their demands anymore. It was at this moment, when she was at her lowest and her most vulnerable, that Margaret truly realized the extent of her worth. For years, she had lived her life for others. Now, it was time for her to live for herself. She realized that her love and sacrifices had been used against her, that her loyalty had been mistaken for weakness. And so, with a newfound sense of strength, Margaret made a decision. She would no longer allow anyone to define her value. Not even her son. Margaret's story wasn't just about financial independence, it was about reclaiming her dignity, her freedom, and her right to live a life that was meaningful and fulfilling to her. It was about learning to say no, to stand up for herself, and to walk away from toxic relationships, no matter how painful. And in doing so, she not only freed herself from the shackles of guilt and responsibility, but she also discovered a new chapter in her life, one where she was the author of her own story. But the true revelation came when Margaret decided to share the truth with the world. She revealed to the public that Ethan was not her biological son, but an adopted child who she had rescued from a life of abandonment and neglect. Margaret had given him everything: medical care, education, a home, and in return, he had betrayed her, turning her into a villain in his own narrative. The truth came out in a way Margaret never expected. She posted the proof, the documents, the adoption records, and the financial records that showed she had earned every cent of the inheritance that had been left to her. The public response was immediate. People who had once sympathized with Ethan quickly turned against him, realizing that the man who had portrayed himself as the victim was in fact the one who had taken advantage of his mother. In the end, Margaret's story became a powerful reminder of the importance of self-respect, boundaries, and personal empowerment. She didn't need to explain herself to anyone. She had done enough. The love she had given her son was enough. And now, she could finally live for herself. Margaret's story is one of transformation, strength, and resilience. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes, the hardest battles we face are the ones we fight within ourselves. After years of sacrificing her own happiness, health, and dreams for the sake of others. Margaret finally learned the most important lesson of all: self-respect. She realized that true love isn't about endless sacrifices or allowing others to define your worth. It's about setting boundaries, standing up for yourself, and knowing when it's time to let go of toxic relationships that drain you emotionally and mentally. Her decision to walk away from Ethan, her son who had been the focus of her life for so many years, wasn't easy. It wasn't just about the financial support, but about reclaiming her dignity and peace of mind. Margaret had given him everything, and in return, he had treated her as nothing more than a source of money. The moment she made the decision to stop giving, to stop allowing herself to be used, was the moment she began to take control of her life again. What Margaret didn't realize at first was that her journey would inspire others. Her decision to share her story with the world, to reveal the truth about her sacrifices and Ethan's betrayal, became a powerful lesson for everyone who heard it. People began to understand that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. And that standing up for yourself isn't just a choice, it's a necessity for your own mental and emotional well-being. Now, as Margaret begins her new life, she is no longer the woman who lived for everyone else. She is a woman who lives for herself. The luxury homes, the financial independence, and the freedom she now enjoys aren't just symbols of wealth. They are symbols of her hard-won victory over years of emotional manipulation and exploitation. Margaret's story is one of empowerment, showing us all that it's never too late to live for ourselves, to reclaim our happiness, and to make the decisions that are best for us. Engagement and call to action. If you've been inspired by Margaret's journey, you're not alone. Her story resonates with so many people who have sacrificed everything for others, only to realize they've been taken for granted. But as Margaret showed, it's never too late to take back control of your life and pursue your own happiness. If you're someone who has struggled with boundaries, who has given too much and been left feeling empty, remember, you deserve to live for yourself too. Margaret's strength is a reminder that self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between someone you love and your own well-being? How did you handle it? Do you have any stories of personal transformation that you'd like to share? Leave a comment below and let us know. I love reading your thoughts and experiences, and your story might be the one that inspires someone else today. Don't forget to like this video if you found it empowering and share it with others who might need to hear this message. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an empowering story like Margaret's. By subscribing, you'll be part of a community that believes in self-respect, boundaries, and living life on your own terms. Join the conversation and let's continue to inspire each other. You are not alone in your journey, and together, we can grow stronger every day. Subscribe now and become part of a community that values you, your worth, and your right to live the life you deserve. Let's keep pushing forward, together.